Hey, what's going on, beautiful people? Ed Governor right here. Definitely welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be showing you guys how you can transform your digital footage, make it to look like it was shot on actual film. The way we're going to be doing that is using a plugin called Dehancer. If you're not familiar with Dehancer, it's a film emulation plugin that lets you do a ton of cool stuff with your footage, and it's very easy to use as well. We got digital cameras now with like almost perfect lenses, and back in the days they had film camera with lenses from Russia that had a lot of engineering flaws in them. With our modern day cameras, which are digital, we don't have all those problems. You know, we shoot on some really good sensors that are good in low light, so you get almost zero grain in there. We also have lenses that have been properly engineered, so there's very little flaws when it comes to the lenses. There's very little barrier distortion, there's very little chromatic aberration and fringing, there's very little color casting, and you also have very little vignetting. So basically what we're trying to do is to rewind time, go back in the days and just mess up our whole perfectly engineered lenses and camera, because we're trying to achieve this so-called film look. So that's where the Dehancer comes in. It's a spaceship, helps us to go to the past. Can't even talk anymore. Dehancer helps us to go back to the 60s, 70s, and transform our digitally looking footage, which is quite sharp, and just make it to feel like it was shot on actual film. So when you shot on film back in the days, you know, there was some challenges that you faced, because I think the process was very mechanical, as you have actual parts moving. So sometimes when you're filming, the film rolls actually moves, which causes weaving, and sometimes your film will be exposed to dirt, hair, scratches, and a lot of things that will cause damages to the film, which would be visible when the film is being played back. And you also had imperfect lenses with a lot of color casting, lenses that suffer from chromatic aberration, fringing, halation, and you know, you also shot on film stocks, which kind of gave you a certain look that you really cannot replicate straight out of camera with the new digital cameras that we have. So Dehancer just basically helps us to be able to go back and kind of live in the past for a little bit, and give that vibe of being in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and so on and so forth. So I got some footage that I went out with my boy and shot, so we're gonna open up Dehancer and play around with it for a little bit. It's a very easy plugin to use. You have a lot of effects in it that permit you to play with a few parameters and kind of achieve certain looks. So I'm gonna open that up and we're gonna play with it for as much as we can. And it's like I said, it's very easy and simple to use, because you have some couple of check boxes that you can check and uncheck, and you also have a few sliders that you can slide back and forth to either increase or decrease the intensity of certain effects. There's a ton of effects in there. For me, usually I start with the film stock, which is what kind of gives you the foundation of your look. There is a bunch of film stock on this plugin right here, and it's kind of overwhelming to go through all of them, but I would say it's totally worth it, because when you go through all of them, then you're able to figure out the ones that you like and kind of stick with it for certain projects. Another thing that we have is film compression. What film compression does is it basically brings down your highlights and kind of flattens them, which is a very common thing for you to see when you shoot with actual film. So I'm gonna test it out on this footage. Like on this footage, you can see we have a lot of highlights. So I'm gonna throw in that effect right now, and you can see. You can also go in and adjust the parameters, which is something that I strongly advise, because the default parameters come on a little bit too strong. So you got to be able to play around with it a little to be able to get those effects that you finally want. Again, you got vignetting, which is basically the darkening of the edges of your images. Like I mentioned earlier, it was very common with old lenses. You still see it in some modern lenses, but it's a lot more controlled. So you can play with this effect a little bit, you know, shift the parameters here and there to kind of lay emphasis to what's lying in the center of your frame. You got film damage that you can also throw on there. It just gives you that old vibe. It comes from your film being exposed to dirt, dust, hair scratches and some other irregularities from damaging. So yeah, you can play with that, adjust the parameters, and you get some really cool looks. And one of my favorites from this plugin is the film grain. I really love the film grain, especially what Dehancer has done with it. So basically what they've done is they've gone ahead and created some custom profiles for 8mm, 16mm, 35mm, and 65mm. And also they've attributed different ISO values. So I think ISO 50, 250, and 500. So you can select one of these profiles and then you can choose the custom mode and just play around with the parameters, so either increase or decrease the intensity, increase the size of the grains themselves, or the amount as well. So yeah, I guess it's kind of difficult for you to see the grain here on YouTube, but I might zoom in a little bit, or I might just increase the intensity so you can actually see what I'm talking about. But yeah, it's for me, I think it's really fun to play around with these parameters and achieve these looks. Another effect that I really like with this plugin is the monitor effect, and basically what it does is it gives you the ability to be able to use your false colors in post-production. Usually I use false color when I'm on the shoot, and most often I get the exposure right, but when you come into post-production, there's a few things that you want to change. And what false color does for you is it permits you to be able to see the exact exposure in certain areas. So for example, you know, maybe you're trying to play around with the exposure on the skin, you want to bring it up a little bit or take it down. You can turn on the false color, slap on the power window, and adjust the exact value to where you want it to be using the IRE. And yeah, so for me that just really helps me to be able to nail my exposure as well in post. So it's just like you got two layers of proofreading. So first you can do it in production itself on the day of shoot, and then you can do it in post just to perfect it. All right, so overall I think this is a really good plugin to use in my opinion. It could be a little bit overwhelming on your computer, but I think it's totally worth it. If you want to go ahead and give it a try, I'm going to leave links in the description down below, so go ahead and check that out. You can get a free trial, test it out for yourself, and if you decide to make a purchase, then you can use my personal code EG10. Again, links in the description for you to get 10% off. That's it from me. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did enjoy it, make sure you go ahead, give it a thumbs up, and if your face is a new one here, I'd greatly appreciate it if you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And until next time, I'll see you. Peace.